Hey there, today we're going to learn about creating invoices in BuildBook. If you haven't yet, I would definitely check out our invoices overview article that goes over all of the kind of caveats for invoices. And it goes through all about why invoices are important as well. So today we're just going to start by creating invoices. Now, if you haven't created an invoice on your project yet, you'll do so from the financials section and in the invoices tab. And if you haven't created an invoice quite yet, your screen will look just like this. So you won't have any metrics or anything up here yet because you need to create an invoice first. So you'll want to click on create your first invoice. And when you do that, it'll take you to the invoices screen. So remember, the payable to is your company information. This is the information that you have put in your company settings in the account. The bill to will populate with the first client that is added to or invited to the project. So if there are multiple clients added to the project, it's only going to populate with this one person. Now, if you need to, you can always remove that person and change it to somebody else. Or if you'd like, you can try to edit their information, like their name and their last name, to include somebody else on here. Now, one of the things I will say is that if they've already accepted an invite to your project, you won't have the ability to do this at all. So in that case, what I would say is I would create a brand new person. So I would remove this person. I would go to add someone new, and then I would add the husband and wife together. Now, this isn't going to do anything with their invites or anything like that, but this will just allow you to basically add in their information. You can add in a street address if you want to. Street, great. And then you can just save it right here, and it's going to save them just like that. So again, it's not going to invite anybody to the project or anything like that. It's just going to allow you to add a new person onto this specific invoice. Next, you'll have your invoice number. You can click to change this at any point in time. So if you've already been using a software and you had invoice numbers in there and you wanted to change it, all you have to do is put the next available number. So maybe mine was, 1100 or something like that. I could put in the next available number. It'll change this to 1100, and then every invoice afterwards will be 1101, 1102, subsequently following the numbering. Additionally, you have a bill date and then a due date. You can automatically set this due date in your invoice settings to be whatever you'd like. I have mine set at 30 days from the bill date, but you could do due upon receipt. You could do 90 days. It is completely up to you. And then additionally, you have these payment terms down here where you can put or default your payment terms so you don't have to write them over and over again. Within the invoices, in kind of the top right corner, you're going to have a status. So these are all of the statuses that we have: draft, open, paid, and void. And then the description. The description here is not seen by your clients. This is just a really easy way for you to describe what the invoice is for. So we can put phase 1 payment. So maybe I'm ready for us to start the project and I want to basically have the first phase of the project paid for. I can do that really easily. I'm going to add my description here just so I know what is happening on the invoice. And then now I can go down into my budget items. And as long as I have a budget already started on the project, I'll be able to choose from my items. So for example, my phase 1 items are going to be my preparation and preliminaries. I can really easily just click on this particular box right here, and it's going to choose every single option that is in my preparation and preliminaries. Additionally, if I wanted to do the entire project itself, I could do that very quickly just by clicking on this particular choose all option. And then if you wanted to, you could progressively invoice for the entire project or simply just for the few bits that you needed. Progressive invoicing is really nice. So maybe I don't need them to pay the total 20,000 right now, but I want them to pay 25% of that. I can really easily do that here. And essentially what it's going to do is it's going to show me how much I'm adding to the invoice. So I'm going to be adding about 5,000 to this invoice, and you can also see how that's calculated across the items right here. Now this Total technically does not include taxes yet. So you'll notice that these items on here, these do not include the taxes that I have added here. So if I go ahead and I add this to my invoice and there's anything that has taxes on it, those are going to show up here within the estimated taxes on the invoice right there. Okay. I can always also optionally click on any item to see how much is invoiced and how much of that item is remaining. And if I wanted to, maybe I realize now I want to go ahead and actually invoice for the entirety of that preparation and preliminaries section. I can really quickly and easily just go through and delete these items off of the invoice just by clicking on the trash can on the right-hand side and allowing me to delete everything off of the invoice so I can start fresh again. We'll just add 100% of everything right here, add to invoice, and it's going to add everything up to me to that $20,000 mark. Additionally, if I had any discounts or credits that I wanted to reflect on the invoice, I could do that here. So essentially you can just add in a credit amount if you wanted to. I have $100 worth of credits already added to my budget right now. So I could go ahead and basically use 100% of those credits, or I could just choose to use like $50 or whatever it is. In this case, I'm not going to use any today. This is just going to be an invoice that I send out to the to Gomez and Morticia for the entirety of the first phase. When I'm ready, I can either switch my invoice to open, and that locks the invoice for me so I can't make any more changes, or I can leave it in draft status and then click on preview and share. And this is how you're going to share your invoice with your clients. So in the top left corner, there is a client visibility that allows you to choose what type of information you'd like. So I may not need to show them, the quantity and unit price. Totally fine. I can remove those options here. Maybe I don't want them to see really much information at all. I really just want them to see kind of the summary. In that case, it's going to give me just a total down at the bottom without those individual line item amounts. And you can go through and change this at any point in time. This until you choose what your client visibility is and then share the invoice with the client, they're not going to see any of this quite yet. So feel free to take a look in here and move things around how you like. Some people like the summary where they have absolutely no information on it. It's literally just an invoice like this. And some people like to be incredibly detailed and have every single bit of information on here, and that's totally acceptable as well. Next, you'll click on Share Invoice, and you'll have a couple of different options to share the invoice. So you can either email it, you can copy a link to it, you can print it, or you can export it as a PDF to your computer and save it. If you think that you're going to need this invoice in the future, you'll always have access to it through BuildBook, but I do always suggest just downloading a PDF if you think that you're going to need it on the fly for something really quickly. Again, you can always access any of your invoices or anything like that within your account, but this just kind of helps me have it on my computer. So if I needed to really quickly, instead of logging into BuildBook to grab something, I could grab it directly from my computer. The print option is great if you have clients who are not very tech savvy or they just don't want to be in BuildBook and they don't want to get an email because they're going to have to view the invoice in BuildBook. This will allow you to print the invoice and hand it to them. Copy link to invoice will allow you to copy a link, and then from there you can paste that link in any type of web browser that you want to, and your client will be able to see the invoice really quickly. And if you have any URLs down here, so like a payment URL for like Stripe or QuickBooks or whatever, they can literally just click here on this URL to pay the invoice really quickly. Otherwise, they can print or download it as a PDF. And then finally, you can email out the invoice to your client. When you do this, it's going to pull the client's information that you have added to the invoice. So I didn't add an email and therefore there isn't one populating, but as long as your client is invited to the project or added on the invoice with an email, it will automatically populate that email right here for you. Additionally, you have a reply to, so if the client has any questions or anything, they can reply and it will go to your email address. And then finally, if you wanted to, you could CC yourself on this email or anybody else who might need it. So any additional clients or partners on the project who want to view this invoice. Additionally, you have a subject and you have an editable message that you can personalize to make sure that your client understands what this invoice is for. Now, once you've clicked open on the invoice and you go back out to your invoices, you'll see the metrics come up. And lastly, I'll go through how you can add change orders or bills and expenses to your invoice because that's a little bit different. So you can, again, click on add invoice in the top right corner or in the bottom left-hand corner. And when you choose to do a change order, what I personally like to do is I like to describe this and I like to put change order very quickly in the first kind of description or the name so that when I'm looking at this on my invoices tab, I can see that this is for a change order. I can even put in the change order number or whatever it is so that I can go back to that change order. This is going to be a pool spa update. Now, you're not able to pull your change orders or bills and expenses like normal because they're not actually budget items. They're something completely different. So essentially what you're going to do is basically recreate the change order right here. And then you can add an optional description. So we're making this pool larger. Additionally, you'll have the option to tax. If this is grayed out, it is because you do not have tax already set up on your project budget. So if this is grayed out, you're going to have to go back to the project budget and select that items are taxable so that you can tax these items. This was a $100,000 update. So we're going to put it there. I have the ability to adjust quantity. I can add a markup if I wanted to. But since I didn't on my original invoice, we're just going to save this. And now my invoice looks exactly like my change order does. Additionally, if you wanted to, you could add any photos or documents such as like the approved change order, like a photo of the approved change order or some drawings for the project, whatever you'd like to do here, you can add it down here. And when you add anything to this attachments right here, it will typically show up when you email out or when you copy the invoice as a downloadable object. So it's not going to show you a preview of the object. It's just going to allow you to really quickly download it onto your device so that you can take a look. We can put this one as open as well. And here we have our two invoices. And again, those descriptions that we put in, this is telling me that this is the phase 1 payment. This is telling me that this is a change order for the pool. And then as I add things, I can continue to add those descriptions so that they kind of have like a name, basically, that I can see. Now, again, your clients don't see this anywhere on the invoice. And when they log into BuildBook, they don't see this either. Additionally, on your summary, you are able to click on invoices. It's just called payments on the summary. Now, even though I have invoices added, these are not going to affect my project budget just yet. And the reason being is because they're currently open status. But let's say my client has paid this one now, and I want to see how this affects my budget. I can go to the summary right here and see that the paid invoice is reflecting and it's bringing down that balance remaining. So it's reducing this balance remaining right here. And then if I wanted to, I could go into the budget to see how much of this item is invoiced. So again, this is not the remaining. This is how much of the item you have invoiced out, and I can match it up together to see if there's something else. Now, oftentimes, again, with construction, things change, and maybe I need to change something here in the budget price on one of these items, which is perfectly fine. What you won't be able to do is go in and invoice that before you change something on the budget. So if you're trying to invoice or over invoice for an item that you haven't changed on the budget or that maybe hasn't hit the budget quite yet, then you'll essentially want to do the exact same thing as adding a custom item. So you'll add the budget item, whatever it might be. We'll do backfill and grading. We'll add that to our invoice. And then again, I haven't changed this amount yet in my budget, but I know I need to over invoice for it because we're going to have about $1,000 more added onto this. Again, I can add that custom item and I can add backfill, grading, upgrade, or whatever, however I want to call this. I can add it for $1,000. I can click on save, and then that is my additional amount. Now, one of the things is if you go through and change this amount on your budget, it's not going to reflect this additional amount that's already been paid in the invoice. So that's always one thing to keep in mind is if you are trying to over invoice for something, I would actually go in and change it on the budget first here and then invoice for it. A lot of times we have our pros who are a little bit confused about selections. So one of the things about selections and invoices is selections are a budget item, so you can pull those over into your invoices. But one of the things that happens with selections is that they don't reflect correctly on the budget until either all items are completed, or like you see here, these windows are going over the original allowance amount. So if you are trying to over invoice for your selections because they have gone over, then essentially what you'll want to do is either complete all of the selection items in here. So you'll want to complete these, or you can do that same over invoicing that I just did with the custom item. But again, you're going to have to go back through and double check this, and you'll notice that it won't reflect correctly on the budget item. So hopefully that didn't completely confuse everybody, but invoices are really easy to add. You just click on add invoice. You can pull through your budget items. You can pull through all of your budget items. You can progressively invoice on those budget items, so you don't have to choose every single one and choose them at 100% like I did. You can make this 25%, you can make this 20%, whatever you'd like. And then change orders and bills and expenses, those are going to be added as custom items. Additionally, up here, you have some metrics. The metrics are what the actual budget is, including the change orders and credits, how many of those invoices are currently in draft, how much of this is invoiced, so open, paid, or outstanding, how much of this is outstanding and overdue, so these two combine. Overdue will only show you the invoices that are currently overdue, that's past this due date here. Outstanding will show you both overdue and anything that's open. You'll have a paid option right here, so you can see how many are paid. And then finally, this will be the remaining budget after your invoices that are open are paid. If you have any questions, feel free to click on this question mark help icon in the top right corner. And as always, happy building.